Now we've got our site and our house, we can create a worksheet to count those. Now the concept is a worksheet in Vectorworks, and we use the resource browser to create it. So click on this button here, new resource, and it's a worksheet. So we'll call this existing site. Better call it existing site report. Okay, so how many rows do we need? We only need about 4 or 5 rows and 2 columns. And there's my counting. So let's go to zoom, make it a bit bigger and make it easier to see. You can change the width of rows, width of columns doing that if you like. So let's start here and we're going to type in existing site areas. Hit the enter key and you come down. You can format these cells, so you can right click, format the cells. Let's change the font, let's make it 14 points high, and you could bold it if you want, so you could make that bold. So here, this is our site area, building area, and our percent cover. We need to know how much cover the building is on the site. In this particular country we're allowed, or in this particular town, this particular zone, I'm allowed 50%. Now what I need is an equal sign to make that into a formula. Without an equal sign it doesn't create a formula. So nothing selected, put an equals, and then a function, paste function. So the function wants to be criteria area. Now I need the criteria. Click on this down to an arrow again, the worksheet menu, and we're going to choose paste criteria. So the criteria is a class, because that's what we've chosen to use as classes. Site, existing site. Found 2 objects that match that. So there is a problem. I don't know what I've done, but there are 2 objects and there shouldn't be. Okay. So click on the green tick, site area. So why isn't that site existing site? Site existing site. What about this one? Site existing house. So somewhere else I've created a class. Let's just go back and have a look at our survey here, and that object unfortunately is on the wrong class. Let's just change that to 0, or none might be better. And I'm going to remove all by class settings. Okay, so that was my problem area. It was that object in the wrong layer. Let's update our worksheet, and that's much better. So this one, equal sign again. Now let me just show you a trick for this. Now we might find that this area here, that's on the wrong class as well, so let's put that back on none and remove by class settings. What about that object there? That's on the existing house again. Let's get rid of that. So I've ended up with information, because I imported it, I've ended up with information that I shouldn't really have had. Let me just undo that. I just want to make sure I'm not accidentally deleting things. So that one there, let's delete that. And there was another one there as well, which is on the none class. So back to my site plan. So just one object for that, and I just want one object for that. So now I've got this selected. Notice I've got my site existing house polygon selected. So if you look at the object info palette up here, there's its class. Now this is going to help us, because if just watch how I do this. We put in an equals first, we put in the function, criteria area again, enter, and now when I go paste criteria, it'll pick up the class of the selected object. See class, click OK, and it puts that in for you straight away. Now the percent cover is an equals this divided by that times 100. So I got just over 19% cover. So that's an introduction to using worksheets to calculate the areas of things. The brilliant thing is, as we change the areas, or we move the polygons, we change the size of the polygon, it'll count them up. Counting the existing areas is pretty cool, but we can actually do better, and we can count the existing areas, the proposed new site, and the proposed back site down here. So let's start again with a worksheet. So let's create a new worksheet. This time we're going to do a larger worksheet. We can get rid of extra rows if we don't want them. So this is our site area calculations. Site area calculations. Now I think I need about 15 rows and at least 4 columns wide. I'm just going to zoom that up a bit to make it easier to read. So site area calculations. Now, one of the tricks we can do, obviously, maybe not obviously, but if I open up this one, this is the existing one, we can go copy, which is Control C or Apple C, or you can just go copy with a right click. Now define an area which is pretty much the same. Paste. If you define an area which is not exactly the same size, you get an error message. So you have to make sure that you're getting exactly the same area. So paste that in there. Now those, I would quite like to move those, all those cells like that. I'm going to go cut, and I'm going to put them up there. Paste. Because actually I don't want to have a gap between that title and the start of that. This wants to be, now I should be able to copy this, copy and paste. So this is not existing site areas, this is proposed site area 1. I should be able to copy all of that, copy and paste all that in here. I've got one too many cells. So 1, 2, 3, paste. It's better. So the challenge is, let's change that title, we'll call that Proposed Site Area 1. Proposed Site Area 1 and Building Area. You don't have to do that. I just thought it would make it clearer. We can get rid of that anytime we want. You can edit these worksheets. So proposed area, site area 1, site area, building area, % cover. Let's just put these away for a little while. Because now that we've got our existing house and we've got our existing site, what we need is our proposed site. So I think the proposed site might come along to there. Stopping about there maybe. Coming across, not straight across, but maybe on an angle. Click and double click there, and then I'm just going to close that. So that's my proposed site number 1. Now I've already set up a class for this area and it's got blue lines around it. Now filling in the bottom site should be fairly easy. If I use my polygon tool with that paint pot mode, click once and it should fill that in completely, put it on the right class, proposed site 2. Now I need to have 2 copies of this object. Now I could drag a copy down here. That will give me my proposed site number 1 and proposed site number 2. So proposed house number 2. But actually what we do need is we need 2 copies of this one. And that needs to be proposed house number 1. Now the reason for that is that we have to make changes to the area of house number 1. We've got to put additional buildings on. So let's just go over this again. We've got proposed site 1, proposed house 1, proposed site 2, proposed house 2. If we bring back our worksheet, we should be able to change the class of this. So it's not existing site, it's site proposed site 1. Now an easy way to do it is just to get rid of that. Let's just do this again. Let's get rid of all of this here. Select that. Click there and go Worksheet menu, paste criteria, class, OK, and green tick. Bingo, it's updated already. This area is wrong. It says existing house there, so I need to get rid of that. Select that house, choose paste criteria, class, OK, and click on the green tick. Now it's the same area, you can't tell, but at least it's now measuring this proposed house 1. So right click, copy, and paste. So proposed area number 2. Now really all I should have to do here is to change that to a number 2 and change this to a number 2 as well. Click on the green tick, and there's my percent cover. 39% for that project, 37% for that project. I'm allowed to cover 50%, so at this stage I could actually phone up the client and say, I think this is achievable. Now be careful on your information that you use to start this process. If you've used an imported survey plan, at this point you should be able to be really accurate as a survey can be. If you've used an image file that you've imported from Google Earth, be very careful because you start out with some pretty loose information. Now that we've got these areas, this is my new house and my existing house, we realize of course that this house has nowhere to store its cars, it's garaging. So what we have to do is to include a garage on here. And we want the garage to be about that big. So what does that do to my worksheet? Well, until I assign that to the correct class, nothing. So let's make that onto the proposed house number 1. Let's update our worksheet and see what the result is. So the coverage of that site is now 47%. This project, or this building down here, also needs, better undo that, I accidentally undid something. Okay, so this part here, this house here, also needs a garage. So when we assign that to the correct class as well, and we update our worksheet, we should see our building coverage. So we now know how much area we can put on each project. We know that we can fit a decent sized garage here. In fact, that's probably too big. So I can reduce that down to there, and I can reduce this one down to there as well. Still a reasonable sized garage. It's 5 meters wide and it's 6 meters long. So it's still big enough to put 2 cars in. Let's just recalculate our worksheets. Have we still got enough area? And we have. Our coverage is still okay. We've also got enough room here to turn a car, and we've got enough room here for a living court. So at the moment it looks like the project is acceptable. We've got a project which we think is working. That is, we know that we can get the building coverage on, we know how much we can put here. In fact, we could even make this place bigger. But should we? Because if we have a look at things, let's just put in here cost and total, and down here I want to put grand total. Grand total. Okay, I'm going to format all of those cells to become money. So right click, format cells. They are decimals, 2 decimal places with commas and $1 at the front. Click OK. When I put numbers in here, they'll turn up as dollars. So this cell, we need to format that and put a percentage in there. So decimal, 1 decimal place, and a percent in that one. And the same for this one. So decimal, 1 decimal place, and a space and a percent mark. Now let's say, for example, land costs a certain amount. I don't know exactly how much it costs in this area, but let's say it's $60 a square meter. If I put an equal sign and I take that area, multiply it by that cost, clicked on the wrong one, so let's click there. I get a cost, $31,000 for that land. I should be able to copy that and paste it here. Let's do that again. Copy and right click and paste. So now if I type in the cost, which for a very cheap, for a very modest construction is about $1,200 a square meter, $120 a square foot, and that gives me a total cost. What I need now is a cost of that plus that. So now I've got a cost. So I could say to the client, well, look, this is very, very cheap, very, very modest construction. We should really go upscale with this. Let's improve the quality. Now you can see the cost of the building. So this is very rough, but very quick figures.